Hello, beauty, and welcome to this podcast episode, which I'm yet again recording in a new and different way. If you listen to my last podcast episode, I think it was kind of epic, but I want to tell you a little bit of a story about it. So, my last podcast episode was the episode where I talked about my fractured wrist and just what it was showing me about the deeper intelligence that's at play, that knows, that's doing it for you, that you don't know and you can't comprehend, right? And I recorded that podcast into a new software that I've been using for recording and editing my podcast. And I decided to use my vlogging camera as the webcam to my computer for it, since I'm now uploading my podcast onto YouTube. So thought that was all fine, recorded the podcast, finished it, and recorded it in this platform, and then it needed to upload for a period of time afterwards. So that's kind of how it works, right? It's like it finishes uploading. And so that was what was happening, and it was taking a really long time. And I worked out it was taking a really long time because I used a much higher quality camera for the webcam. And so it was just so much data that needed to be uploaded. And it looked like it was kind of uploading 10% per hour. And my plan was actually to record the next episode directly after that. And then what I was doing was I was like formalizing or concretizing the process after the podcast is recorded to be edited, and all of the elements that need to be created for it to be uploaded to my podcast hosting platform, where it then gets distributed to all of the podcast platforms. And then also the things that need to be done for it to then be uploaded onto YouTube, where I'm now also uploading my podcast, and all of the elements that need to be done for that. So I was going to edit that first podcast, put together the process at the same time so that I could then hand that over to my assistant, and she is able to do all of the pieces basically after I finished recording and have the podcast go out on the podcast and the YouTube. So to make a smoother process, just to help me do more podcasting, especially now it's going onto YouTube and there's just much more that needs to happen after it's recorded. And I was already maybe almost a week behind on giving her this. I had meant to give it to her last week, and then we had a meeting on Thursday last week, and I'd said to her, oh yeah, definitely I'm going to record these episodes and get that done for you by Tuesday when she was going to work next, so that you can actually do the backlog that's already sitting there, and then you can pick up the process. Anyway, it took me longer to do a bunch of things for Hot Online, which I released at the start of the week. And I didn't get to recording the episode until Tuesday. So I was like, okay, well, I'm recording it Tuesday morning. I'm going to get it to her. And I recorded the first episode with with my blogging camera as the webcam. And it was taking, as I said, 10%, uploading 10% per hour. And that was like taking, all of my computer's capacity to be able to do that. So pretty much I realized, okay, well, I can't record the next episode. Couldn't do anything on my computer for the afternoon. And I'll just have to leave my computer, make sure it doesn't go to sleep, and just leave it on overnight, and then it will finish being uploaded overnight. And okay, then on Wednesday, I'm just going to go and finish those pieces so then she can have it for Thursday. I got up Wednesday morning to go to the gym. I checked my computer and it was at 71% uploaded. So guys, this is now from like 12 p.m. till 6:30 a.m. It has only gone to 71%. And I was like, shit, it must have stalled. I'll check when I'm back from the gym. So I cut back from the gym. I was still at 71%. And so I did it. I recorded this in a web app, which is what I've been using for my podcast. Like, this is a new one, but I used to record it direct to my computer. And now I have been trialing essentially these different softwares where I record it into the software, but it's vulnerable in a way because I don't just have that file. And so I was doing some research about it. I restarted it. It restarts from zero, and it just wasn't really going up. And so I was like, okay, how can I do some recovery? And I was, I restarted it actually, just tried to see if that would upload. It didn't. It got stuck again. And so then I tried to figure out how to do recovery. I found a recovery file. I hit the download on it, and it just span for like 2 hours and didn't actually start downloading. I was like, okay, shit, this is a really good episode. I'd really prefer not to lose it. And eventually, because I remained calm, I didn't get triggered or upset about it. I just kept going, okay, what else can I try? What else might work here? How else can I try to find this file? Eventually, I did find a way to find the sort of recovery file somewhere else, download it to my computer, and so then I had the file, and I was then able to upload it. And so about 28 hours later, I got the podcast. I got it into the software where then I could go through the editing process for my assistant. And so if you've listened to that podcast episode, that's what it took. It took recording it, and then it took basically 28 hours to get it back and get it online and be able to publish it for you guys. So yesterday I worked on all of that, and now today I'm recording my next podcast episodes. So all of that is to say, I am now absolutely not recording into the software, because that's a different process to just uploading a video in terms of like how much, I guess, bandwidth it takes for the software. So now I'm recording this podcast episode directly to my vlogging camera, and I'm using a different microphone because of that. I think it's a very good mic, so I think it's going to still sound good, but we're going to see. So intro mini podcast episode. But I think what I'll head into actually after this is the discussion on receiving life, because that's what I mentioned. Like the last podcast episode was related to that. And I said at the end of that one, yeah, I'm going to do one where I actually illustrate even more what it means to receive life, because I feel like it's something we hear. I feel like I have a lot of women identify with, oh, they're not receiving. What does it mean to receive? And I've really come to understand what it does mean to receive life. And I want to, be receiving in life. And so I want to share that with you in this episode. And actually, my morning has been a really good example of this. So this morning, I was going to have a friend drop off her dogs so that I could look after them for the day, because she had something on and needed someone to look after the dogs. And I also had my grocery delivery that was meant to be coming. And I knew that I wanted to record podcast episodes this morning. And so I had planned it, so I could get started on recording podcast episodes and, have the delivery come at this certain time, have the dogs come at this certain time. And basically things just were not going to plan. And when that happens, I can start getting quite triggered. Like I might get triggered about how they're not going to plan, like if there's something triggering for me in that. But also what then absolutely stacks on top is my resistance to how they've not gone to plan, and feeling like this has now messed me up. It's messed up my flow. It's messed up what I'm creating, and I'm pissed about it, and I have this agitation and irritation that builds that then actually makes it kind of impossible for me to do the thing that I wanted to do, because I've now shut down. I've shut down my energy, and I'm feeling contracted, and I'm in resistance to what's happening. And then I get even more pissed about that, because I'm like, it's derailed me. It's like, now I've got to deal with like these emotions and I can't just do the thing because I'm feeling so annoyed right now. And, that cycle used to escalate for me and I would get into even more and more resistance. Now that is an example of not receiving life. I've gone into resistance to what is happening, right? So I'm now rejecting that this is happening, rejecting where I am, rejecting where the day has taken me. And so I really have a choice here. I can keep going with that, which is something that I used to do and something that I know a lot of people do, and then start telling the story about how any of those things obstructed you from doing the thing that you wanted to do or were planning to do or wanted, and it's like, well, this is stopping me. This is, this isn't right. This shouldn't be like this. This is what's stopping me. So that's one approach. That is like a lower consciousness approach where you have just gone along with your trigger. And what you've also just gone along with is a fixed idea of how things needed to go in order for you to get your end result. Like you had an image, you had an idea, or you have an image and an idea of things need to be like this in order for me to get what I want, or in order for me to have the power to create what I want. And then when conditions aren't the way that you, in your mind, think they need to be for you to get your end result, you shut down. Or you may shut down, or, in certain circumstances, you shut down and you go into resistance to what is and what is happening. And as soon as you do that, you are no longer receiving. You're not receiving life. You're actually in resistance to life. And you go into, you might be going into some sort of victim mode, but you also go into a mode where you create separation. You separate yourself from what is and from what is happening and from what is life and from life. And you might go into even a bulldozing mode from there of like, I have to do it all myself. Fuck you all. And you're just going to bulldoze your way through. So the other option is to receive. And so what does that actually look like? I don't feel like this is the most amazing example, but I just wanted to give it because it's actually just what happened this morning. And so I find whatever's just really alive for me, I feel is kind of the best way for me to share something. So in this example, to receive is to go with, okay, this is what's happening. And if I just go with that, and what is my end result, and I don't resist what's happening, I don't try to fight against what's happening, which is pointless because it's what's happening. It's what is. It's what is, right? It's so pointless, but we all do it, like resisting and fighting what is. And so the other option was like, okay, I can let go of like making what's happened wrong and like, being pissed at the two people involved in the two things that have not gone to plan. Because then my friend, there was kind of more to it about like, she hadn't asked me, but it was like I was meant to have the dogs overnight. And that was quite feeling not considered. And it just triggered an absolute like wound of mine, the way that went down. I don't think it was her intention at all. I'm not blaming her. I don't think she's done anything wrong. I know that like she's got a lot going on for herself. And so I think she just missed things in her mind, but I get triggered by that because that is a trigger for me. And I feel like people are just taking me for granted, expecting, like not communicating with me, but expecting me to be available, and expecting me to just like bend to their agenda without even having asked me. And that's my trigger. That's not what's really going on. That's like, okay, mini extra, like I think this is just so powerful to really start getting a grip of this. Like side note, what you think is going on is not what's going on, ever. Thoughts and feelings are not reality. Whatever you're thinking and feeling about things is not what's happening. It's not reality. It's how you're trying to make sense of reality through the lens of your beliefs and assumptions about life, about the world, about others, about what this must mean. If this is happening, this is what must be going on. No, it's not. No, it's not. What you think is happening is not happening. What you think is happening is never happening. And so this is just this. So that's a side note example of like, that's what I was feeling about the whole thing. And I felt really triggered by it. And I can also see that's not what's happening, but that's what my brain is telling me what's happening. I'm really annoyed at my friend. And so I can either keep being annoyed at her and then be annoyed. So the dogs aren't coming anymore. Not because of that, but just because of things. And so I can either stay annoyed at that, stay annoyed at how that like disturbed my schedule for this morning and it messed things up for me. And like, if that had been the case and now I've had to spend time on this and like, you know, if I had known, I would have done things differently. I would have got into recording earlier. And then my groceries order from the organic store that I order groceries from was meant to come at 11. So I'm timing things knowing that they'll be at 11 and then I'm going to start this thing afterwards. They didn't come until just now, like 12:15, you know, and I can feel it like bubbling up inside me, like the rage, the refuge, like, these people have messed things up and that's not how it, you know, and taken me away from my end result and what I would have done and achieving what I want to achieve today, ultimately creating what I want to create. But that's not true. That is your ego, my ego here, having a fixed idea of like, this is the way things should have gone. And this is the most ideal way they could have gone. And because they didn't go that way, I've been messed around, taken from, and, you know, now I'm like, you know, worse off and precluded from my end results, basically. So I can keep going along with that, or I can receive life and receive what's happening and go, okay, this is what's happening. I can either be in resistance to what literally motherfucking is, or I can receive it and just go, okay, this is what's happening. So now what do I want to do? So, okay, this is what's happening. All right. So I do still really want to record my podcast episodes. So I'm just going to record my podcast. I'm just going to do it. And like, you know, like that could have derailed my whole day. And I'm going to be honest, I know so many people that would have derailed their whole day. Not only would it have derailed their whole day, they would have fucking told at least 5 people about it. Probably would have told people even the next day if they saw them out somewhere, like, oh, this is what happened. It has messed me up. It only messed you up because you let it mess you up, because you didn't, you cut yourself off. You put yourself into resistance and you didn't receive what is. And, you know, and so you fought against life. And then you have to, and when you're in that mode, I'm going to find an illustration that illustrates this aspect a bit more, because I don't feel like my illustration I'm giving you does. But like when you're in that mode, it's all on you and you have to do it all yourself, and you don't actually allow yourself to be supported by what's happening and what's going on. Actually, no, this example is perfect. This is perfect. Okay, you don't let yourself be supported by what is going on. So you're not receiving. You put yourself into separation because you're resisting what is. You're not being connected to life and what's happening. Basically putting up a wall to it. And then the only way to create is by small little you bulldozing your way, taking those A plus B plus C steps, and you just go into a linear, effortful, mechanical, bulldozing way of creating. So that's one way. The other way is to receive, okay, well, this is what's happening. And if I just receive this is where I'm at, receive this is where we are, what would I do? What's my obvious next step? Like, what's my end result? And then what's obvious for that? And then you just do it. And so firstly, you can even see how much fucking energy you save because you just get back onto things, but actually you get to take a step on top of whatever actually is, when you receive it. So for example, what I was just like catching myself mid-moment then, why this actually is the perfect example. Oh my God. So I wanted to record this podcast episode, right, on receiving and what it actually means to be receptive in life and receiving, which is a feminine energy, a feminine side of creating. And everything, you get to create everything with so much more ease and literally with the support of life and the universe and constantly being given this fodder that actually supports you to create what you want and your end results if you would just let go of the idea of how it needed to happen or the conditions that need to not exist, because all of that is always false. That's always an image your ego is projecting. So in this example, this is actually so perfect. I just can't even fucking believe it. But in this example, how receiving works and actually using what's happened to, as something to step on to create your end result is I've just used this story to create this podcast. Like this was an illustration of what? This is so funny. This was an illustration of, receiving life versus not receiving. And, and I've just used that because I decided to stop resisting it and just receive it and then just sit down and record a podcast episode. I actually wasn't even going to record this episode right now because I was like, oh, I'm not really thinking. Oh my God, this is so funny, guys. Because I was like, I'm not even thinking of a very good illustration. And I wrote down, I've got 3 other ideas of things I want to record. And I was actually going to start with one of those. And I'd sort of just left this receiving one in the air a little bit. And I was like, I'm not sure how alive it's feeling for me in this moment. So I'm not sure how well I can transmit it. And after I gave you my little intro about what happened with the last podcast episode, and I finished that, as I finished that, I was like, nah, I'm not going to do one of them. I am just going to go straight into the receiving episode because even that story is an illustration of receiving because I just kept receiving. Okay, this is what's happening. So what can I do? Oh, okay, this is what's happening. So what can I do? And I just absolutely did not go into any stress or frustration. Like it didn't even boil up inside me. I just kept going, okay, so like that's not uploading. All right. What can I do about that? Like, okay, I'll just do a bit of research. Oh, it looks like if I go to this recovery link, there's oh, okay, that's not downloading. All right, maybe I can find it somewhere else. And then I got these other instructions and it was telling me to go somewhere and find the files folder. And I was like, there is no files folder there. I cannot see any files folder. I could have thrown in the towel at that point. But then I just asked like the AI, okay, I cannot see a files folder. There's no files folder. These are the only 3 tabs I have. And then it was like, oh, okay, that's because you're not actually in the bit that I'm trying to tell you to be in. You now need to click this and then you will see the files folder and then you will find the thing. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. And then I found it and then I managed to download it, because I just kept receiving what was happening and going with it and going, okay, well, what do we do from here? Like, what do we do from here? Rather than rejecting that this was even happening, right? And so that led me to be like, okay, well, I'm just going to, just in that moment as I was speaking, I'm just going to make the fucking receiving one. I'm sure I can come up with examples. I'm usually always, when I'm teaching and doing podcast episodes, I'm always just coming up with illustrations on the fly. I was like, I'll just figure it out. And also I knew like what's happened this morning is actually an example of where, like my brain was trying to get me to go into resistance. My ego was in fucking massive resistance. Pissed at my friend, pissed at the shop, pissed that everything was fucking with my schedule. And like, if I had known, I would have recorded podcasts earlier. It's like, shut up, let it go. What's your end result? What do you want? Record podcast. Okay. And so what's happened? I sat down to record a podcast and actually what happened this morning that quote unquote, derailed me from recording the podcast earlier is the very thing that I've used so that I could create this episode, so that I could illustrate to you the theme that I wanted to get across in this episode. So you can see, like, that's an example. This has turned out to be the best fucking example ever. I can't even believe it. Like, that is an example of receiving, of just using what is. What I say a lot in my mastermind to my girls is like, I've created a turn on code, which is like a very simple code to apply the premises and principles that I teach about the creative orientation and being turned on. And, because that's ultimately like your energy is turned on. You're connected to your higher self. You're connected to the universe. You're connected to your genius, and you create from that connection and from your highest vibration. When your energy is turned off, you are shut down. You're in a defensive mode to life. You're in a blocked off mode to life. You have separated yourself from life, and people do this. I did this for ages. You might get yourself to take tons of actions from that mode, but you're taking action from separation. And so everything's on you, every little thing, and it's effortful, it's push, just like what I was talking about earlier when you're not receiving life. So one of the things that I have in my turn on code is applying the code that everything is happening for you. Everything is happening for you. Everything is something that is bringing together what you want if you use it as that. Oh my gosh, this is turning out to be an even more important and genius episode than I even realized, because this is something that sometimes some of the girls in the mastermind get stuck on. And I've been saying, like, yeah, I'm gonna create a podcast or something that to like get into this a little bit deeper so that it can land even more for you to apply it. And this is it. It's happening right now in front of my eyes. I didn't even realize it. And that is actually also an example of like what happens when you receive and you don't need to control and plan out and figure out every little thing yourself. When you create like that, I've got to plan out and figure out every single step and detail myself that's going to bring together this end result, that's going to create this course, that's going to create this business, that's going to do my marketing. Then you're doing it all on your own. You're doing it all on your own, and it is effortful, and you're only using what you personally know. And so you're not actually accessing or tapping into your genius at all. You're just in that, like, a very low level creative mode of operation that, that is hard fucking work. Anything you create from that mode will be hard fucking work and will never pay off in the way that you want, like, in a really big way. And so you're always going to feel ripped off by life. Sound familiar? Ever feel a bit ripped off by life? Bit ripped off that, like, you're not getting the magical explosive results that other people are getting who didn't try half as hard as you? Does it sound familiar? That's because this is what's happening, because you're creating disconnected from life. You're not receiving. You're having to do every little bit yourself. And the fact is, like, you don't have it in you. It's not in your tiny little, like, self-conscious pool of experience. It's in the greater intelligence that you can tap into and co-create with. And this is what's happening right now. And I wanted to create a deeper resource and podcast episode for this turn on code. And this actually is, I didn't even plan this at the start of this episode. I didn't even write any notes for this episode. But also this is something that I'm always teaching on, so I know it really well. But now it's actually because I've received, and I've just received what is and gone with that and met what's happening in life. It's bringing it together. So this turn on code, everything is happening for you. So what I was getting around to saying with that, with my queens in the mastermind feminine mystery school, what I'm saying to them a lot with that is, like, you can think of this either as everything is literally happening to support you. I mean, it is. It's the same thing. Or you can use every single thing that happens as something to support you if you just use it that way. It's the exact same thing, honestly. Now that I say it, kind of used to think of it as like, you can think of it as either, but it actually really is the exact same thing. And so an analogy that I give that they often find helpful is that think of everything as a raw material that you can use and create from. So like you could imagine it's like everything is clay that you get to mold into what you want. Everything. No, even if it looks like something wrong is happening, even if it looks like, oh, this shouldn't have happened, this is actually derailing me. It will only derail you if you go into resistance to it and derail yourself through that process. If you actually just stay open to it and receive it, it's clay that you can use to create what you want from. And you don't have to know in the moment how it's serving you, how it's happening for you. You just have to receive it and go, okay. And so like, if this is where I am, if this is what's happening, like what will I do next? What's obvious? Where am I going to go from here? Like if I just don't go into any sort of story, I just don't let myself indulge in that. You can feel it. It can come up. You're never getting rid of your ego. Like for me this morning, I felt it. Like it was beyond my, let's say, control. And it also just didn't matter that like, you know, that bubbling kind of like irritation and then almost anger, honestly, with my friend came up. Not because of actually what was happening, but because things weren't going my way. And my ego believes if things don't go my way, then like people are just going to bulldoze me and I will have no like agency to like get what I want done. That just comes directly from my childhood, where the entire orientation was like you serve the family and the family farm, and like nothing about what you want is like valid or important above that. Like you just got to pitch in for that, and you kind of a selfish bitch if you don't. That's sort of what I got from my childhood. So like it bubbled up. I felt it, but I didn't have to go along with it. I didn't have to believe that story, you know, and it honestly takes a lot of, as it's happening, I feel it. Like it takes a lot of maturity and like will for me in those moments to go, I'm not going to go along with this. This is what I'm feeling, but this is not what's happening. And I want to now go into a reaction where I tell the story that this has messed up my day, but I'm not going to let myself do that. Like I can feel that. And, you know, and what I find helpful is like, and I can identify what is this actually poking? Like, you know, and the thing with my friend, I already shared what that was poking, like I'm being taken for granted, blah, 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 blah. And then also the second one of like, things didn't go my way, so now I'm precluded from creating what I want, which is not true. And so, you know, you can feel it. It can come up. There's nothing wrong with that. Like your ego is your ego is with you, babes. So it's constantly having reactions to everything you're experiencing, and that's fine. We don't need to get rid of that. And honestly, those reactions become less and less strong the more that you rise above them, you see what's really going on, and you go, yeah, I'm just not going down that road anymore. Like that just doesn't serve me. It doesn't serve anyone. And it's just like, you know, it's like this false sense of security going down the road of your ego. And it does take will to not go along with your ego's story, because by some weird, kinky, fucked up, it's not fucked up. But, you know, like there is this weird thing. I'm going to say that it's weird because it does seem weird when you really like get awareness of this happening within yourself. You want your victim story. There's a part of you that's actually really attached to it and doesn't want to let go of feeling wronged or feeling let down or feeling disappointed or feeling like someone didn't, you know, treat you as important or whatever your story is. Like and like your most painful ones part of your ego wants to hang on to that. And it takes will and vulnerability to go, you know what, I'm just gonna let that go. I'm gonna like feel that and see that, but I'm gonna actually be mature and, see that's just my childish way of making sense of this. It's not actually real. Um, and so you can feel it, but then to go, okay, but what if this is what's happening, and I just let go of the attachment to thinking this is wrong or thinking this is the way my day shouldn't have gone, and I just receive it as it is, and I step forward from here, and I create from here, and I create from here, right? So that's like this illustration of receiving. And so the illustration that I give the girls with that turn on code is like, imagine everything is just clay that you get to pick up and mold. So nothing is ever wrong or bad that it happened. Like it's never it's like, oh, okay, the delivery people came like an hour and a bit late. Okay. So now what can I do? And to just really let go of the idea that anything took anything away from you or derailed you or stopped you or, was a barrier. Like when you just remove that, then you let life in and you receive it. And so for me, like I didn't have to figure out like, oh, how has this been a good thing? Oh, like I can't see how this has been a good thing. I can't see how it's been a good thing that my friend did this and now the dogs aren't even fucking coming. And like, ugh. Or like, how has it been a good thing that the deliveries was late? Like, how has it been a good thing that this person fucked this up and my cleaner did this and da-da-da-da? Like, you don't have to know in the moment. You just have to receive it. Okay, this is what's happening. This is what is. And like, okay, so what do I do from here then? And, it's just, oh my God, it saves so much. One, you save so much energy, but two, you then actually allow yourself to receive what has happened and use it to create like this clay. So think of it like clay. Everything's happening for you / if you choose to let it, if you receive it, if you just let it in and receive it, right? And this is like, my wrist is actually a really good example of this as well. Like I fractured my wrist doing acro. I actually now can't. So for the past, I don't know, 5 weeks, I guess, six, maybe more, 6 or 7, I haven't been able to do any of my hobbies. Like my hobbies, contact dancing. I went to ecstatic dance when I got back, and there's people I contact dance with there, and I love contact dancing so much, especially with these people. These are guys that just have me in the air, like rolling, like flying. And I can't resist it if one of them's going to come up and initiate a dance with me. And I fell a couple of times onto my wrist, which was really bad. Oh man, not good. And so I was like, okay, I can't go to dance because I cannot risk falling on the fracture again. And acro, I need to use my wrist for most acro. And secondly, there are some things I can do without my wrist, but again, there's the risk of falling on it. And I was not willing to take that risk and put the healing in jeopardy. Also because I use my wrist for all of my hobbies, I absolutely, like, the most important thing is that it heals properly so that I can get back to my hobbies. I'm not going to sabotage that. I also do floor work dancing, which you're always on your hands and your wrists when you're on floor work. And so basically I couldn't do any of my hobbies without risking falling on my fractured wrist. So I've not been doing any of my hobbies. I also got sciatic pain as soon as I got back from Thailand, which was where I fractured my wrist. And so a lot of my activity is that I get in a lot of steps each day and I walk. I walk once or twice a day and I get a lot of activity in, and that keeps my activity level up and also strength training. And so basically all of these things were compromised. I stopped walking completely for about, I guess I just started again this week. So I guess for maybe like 4 or 5 weeks. Um, and and I've had this sciatic pain, and so my strength training also, I haven't been doing what I would usually do because it's just way too painful with my wrist. I can't do it. And, I could go into resistance to that, and I could tell everyone a sob story about, how this is preventing me from all my things and poor me and I'm a victim. And if I had that story, I would just be being a potato and like complaining race basically. But what I've done instead is gone, you know what? I actually had this wrist would get really sore if I did the wrist got fractured, if I did handstands on it too much. And so I don't train handstands basically like in one part because of that. And, it is a limitation in that way. And I'm obvious, like, and I just, like I'm not doing a lot of wrist prehab. I'm not, because it felt like I can get away with it. I'm not like really on warming up my wrists properly before training. And also I've got some issues that cause my nerves down the back of my legs to be super tight, and I don't have the flexibility I want. And it's something I've been wanting to really tackle and, and sort of been doing things towards, but not making a lot of progress over a few years. And so with the sciatic pain as well, I was like, okay, well, I'm just going to use all of this as an opportunity to like get both of these things functioning even better than they were, and that's just one opportunity from this. Like there's so many more, but like, if I go, okay, how can this work for me? How can I use this to help me? Like, well, I had an issue with my wrist in the first place that I didn't actually fully realize was an issue until now. I'm going to address that and like through the healing process, resolve that issue as well. And with my hip, okay, I'm going to address that, and I'm just going to do like so much conditioning and rehab around my hips and figure out what's really like been the issue that does aggravate my nerve, that then creates all the tightness, and then I don't have the flexibility that I want, and it actually limits what I can do in acro and dance, that I don't have that flexibility. And so then it becomes cool. So like, why would I be upset about it? That's an example of receiving. Okay, so so I got a fractured wrist. If I receive it, this is how I can actually even use it to further my goals, in this case, my end result of being in my highest health and vitality, mobility with my body, being able to do all the tricks I want to do in acro and in floor work. And, and the hip stuff, fuck, if I like crack this, which I am going to, and this has just helped going through this, blockage with the sciatic irritation has helped me get even more down to what I think is the root structural problem. And I'm working on all of these small exercises to try to address what I think is a root structural problem in my posture and underactivity of some of my muscles. And so that I can get, because do you know what? At the start of last year, my main health focus was fucking nail this. Oh, they've just got so many examples of this. This could go on forever, but I'm going to wrap this up soon. At the start of last year, it was like facing the powerlessness I was experiencing around my weight and relationship to food and the dysregulation of all of that. And like, because when that's all dysregulated for me, I can't even feel what my appetite is. I can't see that there's anything I can do about it. And I feel absolutely rooted in a reality of powerlessness about it. So the start of last year, I was actually really the end of the year before. I was like, no, I'm not powerless. I can't see what I can do right now, but I'm not. And I stopped, one of the things, and I share a bit about this actually in my book, Be Unacceptable, that I published in December. One of the things that helped me shift into a level of consciousness where I was able to see the solution, take the action, and get my end result, was that I stopped resisting what is. I stopped resisting reality. I stopped resisting where my body was at and my relationship to food. And I just stopped being in resistance to it. I stopped rejecting it, because actually being in resistance to it and rejecting it was what kept me stuck in it. And I couldn't see my way out of it. So it was actually letting that go and just receiving, yeah, this is the reality. This is where I am. This is how I feel. This is how I feel when I look at myself. And, embracing that, I have a whole process that I go through in my book, which is so simple, but so powerful, that enabled me to get out of literally like a 12, 13, 14, 15-month funk of feeling so fucked up and powerless about it, right? And so last year, that was my focus, was tackle that. And I did, and I got it. And like, I could say so much more about that. I'm actually, now that I'm saying this, I'm going to do another weight loss, if that's the bit, what's the best words I can put around this? Like weight loss, relationship to my body, relationship to food episode update. I'm going to do another one of them soon. Because there's so much insight I got from it, and like into this year, sort of what my process has been. And just everyone I always speak to about it, whether sometimes it comes up in one-to-one client sessions or with my sister or with friends, gets so much out of what I have been like going through with it, that I want to keep sharing that process with you guys as well. So we'll do that. But that was my intention last year. That was like my number one health focus. My number one health focus this year is releasing / figuring out what's going on in my hips and the nerves that run down the back of my legs, so that I can like have the flexibility that I want again in my hamstrings. I don't even get to where my muscle limitation is, because I have a nerve limitation with my hamstrings, and I've seen multiple practitioners about it, blah, 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 blah. That's like my number one intention and focus with my physicality, health, movement, mobility for this year. So that's my intention. I have that intention, right? Like I had an intention to record podcasts today, and I had a specific intention to record this podcast about receiving life, and what it means and what it looks like. I like to share things with you guys. I like to take these concepts of like, and share them in a way that I think the way that I share it is like, you can now see it. You can see it at play, and through that and through the way I explain it, my intention is that like you get an actual embodied understanding of that mechanism and what energetically, physically, every level, like you feel and how you experience like that thing, so that you can get an understanding and you can get mastery over it too. But you can understand what it really means, and you don't just hear it as a concept in metaphysics and manifesting and whatever. Right? So I had that intention, and now I had this sciatic irritation, and coincidentally, at the same time, a fractured wrist. So it's sort of taken out all of my regular movement, like one wrist and one hip leg, like takes out all of the movement. I can't just be like, okay, well, I'm just going to do all lower body stuff and all my regular lower body stuff, because of my hip or my sciatic nerve. And I can't just it's actually really gone into my hip, because that everything around that hip has gotten really tight through that irritation. And I also can't just be like, okay, well, I'm just going to do all upper body stuff and handstands and things, because my wrist. So it's like I could be in resistance to that, or I can receive it, and I can receive it as clay, as raw material. And I was actually like, okay, if this, how can I just use this? How can I just use this? How can I just move forward so either like, how can I just move forward from here? Because you don't have to figure out immediately how you can use it. But if you receive life, you will. Like, you just will naturally in the process. Like with this podcast, I wasn't sitting there like, oh, how can it work for me that this happened with my friend and the delivery guy? No, I just went, okay, I'm just not going to resist. This is what's happened today. I'm just going to let it go, and I'm going to record my podcast. And I was even like, do you know what? Because my cleaner's here at the moment. I was like, do you know what? I might just do them a bit later once she's gone, and I'll do some other things first. And I sat back down at my desk after the delivery guy came, and I was like, nah, I'm just going to record one now. Fuck it. Just put it there, record it. And so I am. And through just receiving and being open and not in resistance to life, I have actually stepped on top of what happened this morning, and I'm using it to reach my end result with, fulfill my intention, which was to do a podcast illustrating this principle to you guys in the way that I see it so clearly in life, and I experience it so clearly in my day of like whether I'm receiving or not. Am I receiving or resisting? That's going to be the thing that I'm going to give you of a way of thinking about it. Am I receiving or resisting? Because you're either receiving or resisting. And I was going, so the wrist and hip thing is like, okay, well, actually, if I receive this instead of resisting it, like, what would I do? What would be my next step? And I just come up with this way that I've been working with my body. And, I think it's even been beneficial that I've had none of my hobbies, because then I've just been, I've been able to just land back in myself, moving into this house, settling into my routine, getting back really into creating more stuff in my business again, post like book launch and moving. And, and like I am using this to fulfill my intention for the year. Like I do actually think this is a really supportive thing that's happened to help me fulfill my intention, even though it doesn't look that way. On the surface, if you judge things surface level, as most people do, as we're all trained and taught to do, you would look at this and go, I'm further away from my end result because now my adductor is really fucking tight and everything's feeling really crunchy in there. And like, like I'm being obstructed. That's resistance. That's resisting. Receiving is going, okay, how can I use this? Or like, okay, this is where I am. So what am I going to do from here? What's my next step from here? Right? I could continue to give you examples, so many examples. And this came up in a coaching session this week, so powerfully, which actually happened after I recorded that episode where I was like, oh, I'm going to do an episode on this for my next one. And I could keep giving examples, but I think the examples that came through my day today that I received and then have used to step on top of, or like these are the two ways that I just think are a good way to think of it. It's like, okay, what if I just, I use this as a step? I stop seeing this as wrong. I stop judging this as like precluding me from creating what I want, and I just step on top of it. Or this is just raw clay. How, like, if I just meet this as raw clay, what would I do? And it takes will, as I said, to let go of the idea that part of you is absolutely going to want to hold on to that this is wrong and you've been fucked and you've been taken away from what you want. So like, with the injuries are actually quite a good example of that, because you could be like, this is taking me away. This is taking me away. There was an Acro villa on in Bali. So when I got back from Thailand, I went to Thailand to do Acro, fractured my wrist. Got back, there was an Acro villa on for like 4 or 5 more weeks in Bali. So this, like, guys, there's not that many people that do Acro in Bali, and not the style and level that I'm really into. And so often I have no one to train with. There were all these people here at this villa, and there was a spare spot in the last week of the villa, which, because of the way they had booked it, actually you got more than a week. You got 9 days instead of 7 days. And I had a client that I could do a lot of the sort of tricks that I like to do in Acro. So this like rare opportunity, guys, you really get it. I could have been going down there every week to train, and I also was offered to join it for that last week with the last 9 days. And because I didn't feel it, I kept getting contacted, and they're like, okay, we can give it to you for 50% off. And I was like, and so I can see if I want to resist life and I want to stay attached to my fixed idea of the way things have to go to achieve my end result, I can be pissed about that and I can resist it. And I can tell every man and his dog that asks me about that and like how hard done by I am and how fucked things are. But what I can do instead is go, okay, this is obviously a far more important process that I'm going to actually resolve what was the initial problem in my wrist, which was stopping me actually not just from being able to do handstands, but also being able to do monos in hand to hand, which is a one-handed handstand on someone else's hand. What never clicked for me until I had this injury, like I would think when I would go into a mono, I would like, it would feel like something, like I actually thought it was my shoulder. It would feel like I couldn't hold it and something was just going to give and I couldn't stay in the position because something was giving. And I thought it was my shoulder and I thought it must be a strength issue. But what I actually discovered through this was that if I went to my left side, which only if you train with certain people are they going to get you to go to the left side as well, it held completely strong. And because my wrist was fractured, I didn't know it at the time, but it was so painful. When I went to my right side, I could feel the reason I couldn't hold it wasn't a strength thing. It was because of how my wrist felt. And so my body would bail and I literally couldn't get my body to stay because of the stability and weakness issue in my right wrist. If I went to the left side, I was rock solid. I didn't feel like I needed to bail out at all. I could just hold it. And my left is my weaker side. So, I can look at it and be like, this prevented me from going to the Acro. I would have developed this is just a good example also because really, I have no, I'm not trying to achieve anything in particular in Acro. I just love it. And I want to develop my skills and come up with performances. But, I'm not my life's not riding on it. I could have been all resistant about that, or I can just receive this is what's happening with my wrist. Actually, I'm resolving a deeper issue. And I just believe that the payoff of this is going to be so much more than whatever I would have gotten from just being able to train a little bit while the Acro Villa was on. This payoff is going to be bigger. This is going to set me up to, the bigger picture. That was actually something I did a masterclass on recently in my mastermind. Bigger picture. This is actually going to set me up for so much more of what I want to do and experience and achieve through Acro. So I'm going to leave it there because I realize I just keep talking, and I always do that because I can just talk forever about things and come up with more illustrations and blah, 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 blah. But I'm going to leave it there. I hope that you have loved this episode. I hope it's really made something click for you. I hope the sound is good because I'm recording this for the very first time. Every podcast episode for the past, I don't know how long I've had my podcast, 4 or 5 years. I've recorded on my trusty USB mic, and this, which I think is a better microphone, but this I'm recording on my vlogging camera microphone, which AI assured me would still be definitely a good enough quality for podcasting. So we will see. You will know. You will have an assessment already. I wonder if you can even hear the difference. But I'm sending you lots of love. I hope you got so much out of this. If you did, and if you enjoyed this podcast, I'd love to ask you to leave a rating or a review on whatever you're listening to it on, whether that's Spotify or Apple Podcasts. If you really did enjoy this episode, I invite you to share it with someone or share it on your socials that you think might benefit from it. If you do share it on your socials, I'd love to see it. My handle is @alexh.co. And I will see you, gorgeous fucking human, in the next episode.